everyone, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus a little bit of insight into what it all means. Leading off the show today is AMC Movie News senior editor, Amy Rose Eisenbach.
What up, guys? Coming to you from the Stream.tv. This is our last week here. We've had such an amazing time in the studio, and now on to our own green pastures, which is going to be really crazy and really exciting.
Also here, writer-director John Schnepp.
Hey, what's going on? And yeah, the Stream has been an awesome home for all of us here at AMC, but I'm still doing a show at the Stream called Sweaty Nerds.
That's right.
So watch that.
Also here, AMC's Christian Harloff.
I'll just plug myself. Hello.
And also here, AMC's Mark Ellis.
New York was great, but I'm proud to say Butterlamp is back on the West Coast.
Nice Butterlamps.
Still talking about Butterlamp, Alex?
Butterlamp and versus Butterface.
Versus
It's gonna
AMA.
be
Butterface.
insane.
Jack Black made a humorous jab against the surplus of superhero films at the Oscars, and Dan Gilroy told Independent Spirit Awards attendees that they have survived against a tsunami of superhero films. Director James Gunn had a lot to say on the matter, stating that, "What bothers me slightly is that many people assume because you make big films that you put less love, care, and thought into them than people do who make independent films or who make what are considered more serious Hollywood films. I find there are plenty of people everywhere making movies for a buck or to feed their own vanity. And then there are people who do what they do because they love storytelling, they love cinema, and they want to add back to the world some of the same magic they've taken from the works of others. If you think people who make superhero movies are dumb, come out and say we're dumb. But if you, as an independent filmmaker or a serious filmmaker, think you put more love into your characters than the Russo brothers do Captain America, or Joss Whedon does the Hulk, or I do a talking raccoon, you are simply mistaken." Amy Rose, what do you think of Gunn's comments?
I read this, I'm just like, James Gunn drops mic. You know, it's just like so on the point. Gunn is an amazing filmmaker, and this was a much longer quote for the sake of not killing Miss Ashley over there. He also went on to say that, you know, the Jack Black comment didn't offend him, and he thought it was funny, and that he's, you know, directed indie films and gory films and this, and that that's my heart right there, what he's describing. Indie films and mainstream superhero, all that. That's my heart. I'm split into two. And so I really understand the bad rap that superhero films get in the sense that they have these big budgets. They have so many more things accessible to them. They have huge teams, production, sound stages, everything at, just a blink of an eye. It's just a very different method. With indie films, with lower budget films, you have to be more creative in the confines. But it doesn't mean that these big budget films can't also be really creative. So I get what he's saying. Dan Gilroy, Nightcrawler is one of my favorite films of last year, so it deserves all the love. He also went on to kind of jab Rene Russo saying, well, your wife was in 2 superhero films, so this is silly. But I just think, we are in an age of superhero films. We are, and because it's much more of a surplus in the industry, people of course have their remarks to say and their criticism in this, but it's like any other genre. It's accessible to you if you want it. If you want to see the indie films, Birdman just won Best Picture. That's an independent film. So we have it all. For me as a filmmaker, I get it all, and that excites me so much. And as Shep, I'm sure you can relate, as an indie filmmaker, you have to really get creative and just work with, less budget. So I really admire indie filmmakers. I also admire this, but some big budget pictures are just, met Bay in more recent years. Some of his earlier I loved, but he does give these huge budgets kind of a bad name sometimes because it isn't filled with heart or depth or anything that Guardians was. Guardians was an amazing film. And so these superhero films can be just good films, not just superhero films. So I think that's a shift that's happening. But I thought this was very, very humorous. Christian, what did you think?
There is a reason there are a lot of superhero films, because filmmakers are making good movies.
Exactly.
That's why. Audiences are going to see good movies. And I think sometimes it's very hipster to say, well, I don't want to be associated. I don't like the big budget movies because they're big budget and you can't make a good movie. It's got to be watched the smaller films. It's not the case. So there are a lot of great small. Look, Nightcrawler is one of my favorites of the year last year. Great movie. But to say that comment, it's irresponsible. It's super irresponsible to say because it's just like pitting one against the other. There's another reason why these superhero films are so helpful. Is like I said the other day, when you do a movie like The Avengers, it allows you to be able to throw in some money to say, hey, I'm going to make Much Ado About Nothing now. Joss Whedon wants to make that. He gets to make a smaller film like that. You can do. There's a lot of different opportunities now that come because of these big budget movies. And they're casting these Oscar winners, even like you look something like Star Wars, but not superhero, but in the big picture. Felicity Jones, Oscar winning. They're going after big talent because they want to make big movies. They want to do this. It's about making quality movies, not just about shoving popcorn in your face. There are movies that still do that, obviously. Michael Bay. But other than that, it's a different time we live in now. It's not just, it's shtick to hate on it, to hate on it.
Ellis?
There's crappy independent films too. Like, let's not think every movie that's made on a budget isn't good or nominated for an Oscar. So I can see it both ways. But look, this happens in every walk of life you get to. If you go to sports, people hate the Yankees for a reason because they're able to spend so much money on a team every year. However, once you get to the playoffs, they're kind of more interesting when the Yankees are playing. And I hate the Yankees, but I'm willing to admit that it's like, oh, cool, man, that makes that ups the drama a little bit. When it comes to films, yes, Michael Bay makes terrible movies, but James Gunn made a great movie. And so I think that as a moviegoer, it really doesn't matter because you're paying pretty much the same amount per ticket, regardless of what film you're going to see. Maybe you got to shell out a couple extra bucks if it's in 3D. Right, but the other point I'll make is that, like you said, Amy Rose, I like the fact that you get both kinds, and that when you get to the end of the summer, I have a little bit of superhero movie fatigue, and I'm glad that we start to get Oscar films. And now I'm in that point where, okay, good, the Oscars are over with, we got done with the run of the great independent films. Now let's get some big budget stuff. I'm so ready to see Fast 7 right now. Because I'm sick of seeing all the smaller movies. So it's a nice cycle, I think. And to Christian's point, I think that these movies can have a huge impact, the big budget ones, because you look at like what Chris Evans and what Chris Pratt did, where it's like, I'm going to go visit a kid who's sick in a hospital right now, dressed as Captain America or dressed as Star-Lord. Nobody is dressing up as Jake Gyllenhaal from Nightcrawler to go say hi to a kid, So I think
not.
They probably are, actually.
As Nightcrawler from the X-Men. That's what they're doing.
Shut
I come from a dark time. I remember, I don't know, you kids might not remember this, when there were no superhero movies to complain about. When X-Men was like, oh my God, they're making an X-Men movie? Because they made Blade, and that made money. The superhero films were laughed at unless it was Superman or Batman. No one wanted to touch it. It seemed like it was a plague. So we live in a time now where the superhero genre is making a ton of money. And I've heard similar complaints on different shows over the past few decades about action films or big budget whatever films or explosion films or whatnot. Now superheroes are taking over that area of big budget action films. That's what they are now. Big budget action films are superhero films. Jack Black was going to be Green Lantern. Don't forget about Robert Smigel's take on Green Lantern. It was going to be a comedy Green Lantern with Jack Black running around with a ring. I read the script, it was funny. It might have been better than the Green Lantern that they actually made. Dan Gilroy wrote Superman Lives, a draft of Superman Lives. He did an incredible job. He's very passionate. I interviewed him for my film.
That's amazing. All
about Superman, a superhero film. He's not anti-superhero. I think when you're at the Independent Spirit Awards, it just right there, it's like, it's the reverse of Hollywood. It's people can show up in a t-shirt and be like, yeah, I'm a hipster or whatever. It's not like glamorous and like taking photos and stuff. It's more like, I made this with some gum and a toothpick. I didn't even shoot and film. I shot it on my iPhone. So it's like, to be a little bit, all those big budget films. I think the tsunami of superhero films can be looked at in one way or the other. It's like, hey, look, we're still making other types of films is what my walk away. I didn't have to get so up in arms, but I respect what James Gunn said because it had to be said. So you throw a gauntlet down, here's the other side of the gauntlet. But what's real is what's in the middle of that. So.
Yeah, I think you pegged it with playing to the audience because the Indie Spirit Award, it is a very different vibe and it's not so black and white and it's exciting. I mean, I go to superhero films, Fast 7, all of those, to be entertained and thrilled and have a great time. I go to indie films to be inspired. I want it all. So let's just coexist.
We've got it all.
All right, Ash, what's next?
While against it initially, Richard Linklater has apparently warmed up to the idea of a potential sequel to Boyhood. In a recent interview, he stated, "To be honest, this film first met its audience exactly a year ago, and for the first 6 months of the year, my answer to that was absolutely not. This was 12 years. It was first grade through 12th grade. It was about getting out of high school. I had no idea about another story. There's nothing to say. It hadn't crossed my mind. But I don't know if it's been a combination of finally feeling that this is over, or or being asked a similar question a bunch over the last year that I thought, well, I wake up in the morning thinking the 20s are pretty formative, you know? That's where you really become who you're going to be. It's one thing to grow up and go to college, but it's another thing to, so I will admit my mind has drifted towards this sequel idea. Schnepp, would you like to see a Boyhood sequel?
This is Linklater. Waking up in the morning, Oscar nomination. Manhood. Look, it's a great idea. If anyone's going to do it, he should. I think he's already got that kid trapped in some kind of 100 years plus. Every day I must be allowed to film you for at least 1 hour. When will it end? Seniorhood or whatever. What's the last? It's a trilogy. He should make another one. Go from 18 to 30. That would be amazing. Just add an extra year just to top himself. 12. This time it's 13 years, son. Manhood. I think it's a great idea. I love that movie. I'm actually, it's an experimental film. I mean, we were talking about this. The Oscars this year had really weird films that pushed the envelope and they were up for an Oscar. And two of them, Boyhood and Birdman, were two of the weirder, experimental films as far as storytelling and filmmaking and just the way the story was laid out. Really fantastic film. So Linklater's always doing something cool and new. So I'm sure he'll be like, yeah, I'm going to make that while I'm making these 7 other movies. I'll just, it's like sprinkle land for him. I would love to see Manhood in 20 years.
Manhood. I don't even know if he would adhere to that timeline, though. You know, it might just be a year. I don't know. He's just a mastermind of that. But my initial reaction is no, it's not necessary, because Boyhood was a special cinematic experience, and for him to plot that out, I still wish I could be a fly on the wall in the room when he pitched that idea. People would be like, because you're not going to see the return of your investment for 12 years. What? So it's still baffling to me. It only took 1 Oscar, but I think it will be more appreciated as years go by. I think it's going to be one of those films. So initially I'm like, but it's Linklater, as you said. So if someone's going to pull it off and make it captivating and interesting and really show, the subtlety is what he's so beautiful, he's so real. The relationships, they're real. I feel like I know these people. I grew up with them 12 years by. So if someone's going to do it right, it's him. So we'll see. But I personally rather see other original projects of his to explore. So, Ellis?
Let's make this kid turn into a superhero and just combine both genres of movies, right? And wouldn't that be cool? I think that what you do with this is, of course, you can make a sequel. I think it'd be awesome because it's so much easier to make than it would be than Boyhood was, because you're not seeing this kid who's 6 or 7 years old, man, I really hope he's not ugly when he grows up. Now, he's a good-looking kid, okay? So I agree with him that I think the 20s are the formative years of becoming a man. So seeing that, you can script out the film a little bit better. You don't have to go, I hope that, next summer everybody looks the same way, or we can go off this story or that story. You can plot out, you can storyboard this thing a little bit more, and it's a little bit easier to do. And he's proven he can watch stars age with the Midnight series too, at least with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy.
Yeah.
I think that was such an interesting film a couple years ago, or last year, whenever it came out. It was like, wow, you can still see that you can still have a good story to tell with these people, and you can revisit characters that we saw 10, 20 years ago. So I think he's the right guy to do it. And I would actually, initially you see this story and you're like, nah, that's stupid. Come on, you don't need a sequel to that. I could go for a sequel to this.
It's also going to come out the same year Godzilla does to part 2. But the thing is, the other thing that it also does, off of Ellis's point, is that it gives them more money, because obviously the first one did so well. They didn't, like you said, the initial pitch was like, ooh, this is scary, but they're going to have more confidence putting money into it. I'm with you. When I hear it, I go, I don't know if you need it. Linklater's going to do a great job with whatever he does. He's not just going to throw it together, and it'll be fun, because the other thing is, it's initially hearing him. If he does indeed have this kid's life for the next 10 years, when we see it in 10 years from now, we're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember when we talked about that 10 years ago, and now here it is. So, and we'll probably be excited to see it at that point, and because it's Linklater. But I don't need to see it, but I'd be interested to see it in 10 or 15 years from now.
It's interesting how, with most actors, a legacy in film is like your whole discography. It's like 10 years, but this kid, it's like 2 films.
I know, right?
Over 15 years. Crazy. All right, guys, moving on to the buy or sell portion of our show. Miss Ashley has a couple other items going on in the world of movie news, and we're simply going to say if we buy or sell it. What's first?
Hans Zimmer has created many memorable scores for films like the Dark Knight trilogy, Man of Steel, and Interstellar. The composer just revealed that the idea for Justice League will be to write themes for each individual member, which would then be used for their eventual standalone films. Christian, buy or sell a separate theme for every Justice League member?
huge buy. Out of all the stories I've ever bought on this show, this is one of the biggest ones. Because one of my biggest problems with Marvel is that they just keep changing up their composers after every movie because it's cheaper, and maybe they don't think that people are paying attention to it. Like if you look at Iron Man, they got rid of the AC/DC stuff, and in Captain America, you hear it score his theme for like a brief second. You so like when you think of like Superman and even Danny Elfman's Batman, like you think of these themes that really identify the characters. To hear that each one of them is going to have a separate one. It's brilliant. It's really smart, and you're gonna be able to. The second you hear it in whatever future film, you're going, that's the Aquaman theme, that's the Flash theme, and I think it's brilliant. And to have Hans Zimmer being the guy that is the John Williams of it all is really smart and good for DC. That's a big point for DC for doing that.
Chuck?
I'm going to bring up the Amazing Spider-Man 2 musical composer Hans Zimmer. I thought it was horrible.
You didn't
I don't know
like
if you remember that.
drum and
I am
bass?
a Joe, I am a like this garbage, horrible.
I liked that
theme.
song. Sign me up.
That was in the film. I'm just taking it right out of my brain. Luckily, we're also talking about Hans Zimmer from The Dark Knight and Man of Steel and countless other. I mean, Interstellar. Just so his musical composery. I don't know if that's a real word, but I'm just
Should
gonna use
be.
it.
I love it.
It's pretty legendary at this point. I love his theme, especially for The Dark Knight. I would listen to that while I'm doing my own work or drawing or on Photoshop. Ding, 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 you know, weird, sprinkly nails and stuff. He was doing some really crazy stuff. So I love Man of Steel. I love that theme. So I'm happy to hear that he's going to keep that one, and then now he only has to do Batman for this Batman. So he's got, I got 2 down. I'll take the other 5. I'm sure he was like, no, I'll do that. I already got 2 of them in the bag. You know, yeah, just use them. So I think he's incredibly talented. So you know, I'm kind of half joking with Spider-Man. I was like, you know, everyone gets a couple stinkers in their career. So whatever. It's like I think it's a great idea, and to have themes. You know, I'm sure when we see Jason Momoa, we'll hear that Aquaman theme, and then that's going to be like in a couple of yeah, what's it going to be like? Aquaman. I'm Aquaman. That's a Hawaiian theme song, you know, it's on a surfboard.
Just like the musical.
Yeah,
It's gonna be very Beach Boysy,
yeah,
you know?
I would love it if it was Beach Boys. Here comes Aquaman. Look at his pet fish. But it's all dark, tridents and stuff, but they're like, yeah, Aquaman's got a weapon. You know?
They're air guitaring on the tridents.
Fantastic.
I mean, I buy this too simply because when you initially see the story, it's like, oh, each one's gonna have their own theme. That's gonna get real crowded, and it's gonna feel like a sitcom. Like every time somebody comes through a door, it's like, here's my theme. Here's my theme. But in the way that these movies, at least this movie, is hopefully gonna come off, I think it's brilliant. Like what Christian said, it's like I don't like professional wrestling. I prefer real sports. But with wrestling, when you hear somebody's theme music and it's
So
like,
fun.
oh my God, that's the Flash's theme music. That's going to be really neat to see. And it doesn't have to hit you over the head with it. It can be something a little more subtle, which is the route I hope they take with it. But superheroes, one of the coolest things about them is that they have their own theme. So when you're running on the treadmill at the gym, you get to pretend you're Superman for however long you can maintain that pace. And I think that's an important thing in the DC films going forward. So yes, let's totally do this.
I buy it. I love this so much. And you think about the old classic theme songs, and they were just so easy to identify. You know exactly who it was. And you're right, we haven't had that. It's been a shift. I think Hans Zimmer is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yes, everyone has a dud, whatever, but we don't know what they asked him to do. But for this, it's perfect, and also as a launch pad to these standalone films, because they're all going to bring their own essence and atmosphere to it. So if you have that distinguishing music, it's just going to be awesome. I'm so excited to see how they create that, and how fun for a composer to get to be able to do that in this generation of superhero films. So I think it's brilliant.
I wonder if they're going to try like spreading out all the sounds in all 7 of them, and when they come together for Justice League, they'll overlay to make all 7.
Yes.
It
You've
makes
got
one thing.
the strings, you're on guitars. This guy's
Yes.
just drums. That'd be kind of
It's a
wild.
lot of writing, though, man. That's
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 superheroes. Every
I know.
album has a couple duds in it, so I hope they're all cool.
Who's going to be the dud?
Flash. I'm running really fast. I'm running.
Actually, the coolest one is just really fast guitar tapping.
Yeah.
I
Van
love it.
Halen style. Get Eddie Van Halen on that.
I wouldn't say no to that.
Listen to that, Hans. All right, what's next?
It was being reported that actor Jamie Dornan was trying to get out of his contract so that he won't have to appear in the upcoming 50 Shades of Grey sequels. This rumor has since been debunked, however, and it has been confirmed that Dornan has signed on for both sequels. Mark, buy or sell Dornan staying with the franchise?
why do I have to get this one? Like, I know I'm supposed to care about every story on this show. I do not care. I really do not care who's playing the dude because he was such a wooden character. But I don't pin that all on Dornan. I think that's the writing. And I think most people are going to feel the same way, where it's not going to ruin this dude's career if he appears in 2 more of these films. You know, I think what is going to sink somebody like a Taylor Lautner after Twilight is that he's not a good actor, as opposed to the fact that he was the werewolf in Twilight. You know, Robert Pattinson, I think he's a good actor. So even though he didn't have a lot to do in Twilight, he can still go on to other things. Kristen Stewart can go on to other things. So I don't think this sinks the guy. I think that if you are in a film that's guaranteed to make $150 million at the domestic box office every year, that ain't a bad thing to be. So it's not like, I don't know what other projects he has in the works, or if he was trying to get out of this to be in some other movie that he was really passionate about. So I don't know what the scheduling is. I don't even know if this report's true that he was really trying that hard to get out of it, or he was just exploring other options. I don't think that Christian Grey is going to be like a James Bond where we get a new one and it's like, oh, I can't wait to see Idris Elba play Christian Grey. So this story doesn't really move the needle for me either way. So I'm going to sell it totally.
I am so relieved. Kidding. I don't care at all. I mean, I've expressed my distaste for this franchise a lot. Yes, it makes a lot of money, whether you're hate watching or you're curious or your girlfriend dragged you to it. I understand why it made so much money. It wasn't even sexy. I could go on a rant about this film. But the point is, I agree, it wasn't Jamie Dornan's fault. He was stiff. I keep hearing he was really good in The Fall. I've never seen it, so I don't have a comparison. But I just don't care either way as well. But Dakota Johnson, on the other hand, she took a really poorly written character and she actually added a little bit of depth and she made it more interesting than I thought was possible. Yeah. So I'm interested to watch what she does next. I could care less about him.
I buy the story because you know what? You signed the contract, brother. Like, you looked at it. You said, "These books made money. You're the one that acted. You chose the way. You stick through it. You signed that first one. You stay for the other 2." If the report was true, what probably happened was he got the backlash. Johnson's getting all the praise, and he's probably like, "But I'm good on The Fall," and and that's what everyone says. He's so good on The Fall.
I'm good on The Fall.
I mean, come on. And he plays a serial killer that transfers into 50 Shades of Grey because he's still playing that character. You see him. That's creepy. But he's creepy. But I'm buying the story. I'm buying the story that he's sticking with it because you signed the contract.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can care about this story, but hardly anything. I'll just say this. Look, Charlie Hunnam scrimped out of it. He was like, look, I got to do Sons of Anarchy, even though that was like 6 months. I was like, I just have to sleep. I got a lot of sleep I got to catch up on. So they got this dude. I didn't see the movie, so I can't crack on this guy, but whatever. I would be like, if I was this guy and I was in 50 Shades of Grey, and I was like, yo, I got to dominate some girl in a movie. So I don't even know it's 50 Shades of Grey. I haven't seen it yet, so.
Don't
think I'll be seeing it.
Yeah.
I saw Secretary, so that was
a great
better
movie.
film. So this movie's making $200 million. He can basically be like Cuba Gooding Jr. man. He could just be like, give me a bunch of movies. Let me be in a submarine film. Let me be in some action film where I'm the cop chasing. It's like he can be in all those movies because he knows he's got another blockbuster coming out next year. And then, I'm sorry, there's a third one, 50 Extra Shades of whatever Grey. Whatever it's called, more
50
Grey.
more shades.
But he does have to battle that thing, like Ella said. Robert Pattinson didn't just come out of the gate, doing what's the one that we liked?
Rover.
The Rover. Yeah.
It took him a while to get. I went in there going, oh, another.
Me too.
Robert Pattinson,
He surprised me.
Crushes
He was great in it.
Dornan's got to do something like that, as to where he's got to do a smaller film to where he wins everybody over, because the first thing, the dude from 50 Shades of Grey,
yeah, totally.
And then he does a role that dudes like, women like, and you're like, okay, all right, well, I'll forgive you for doing the sequels, but do something great.
Smartest move of your career, Charlie Hunnam, to back out of this franchise. All right, what's next?
Back in September, despite major delays, director David Fincher stated that he believed that a sequel to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo would eventually happen because of the millions of dollars that Sony has already spent on the rights to the script. But in a recent interview on the concept of a sequel, star Rooney Mara stated, "I don't think it's going to happen. I'm sad never to do it again, but it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards." Amy Rose, buy or sell that we'll actually see a Dragon Tattoo sequel?
Sadly, I will buy that we won't see it. I'm kind of torn. I could see it going in either direction, but because of everything that's happened with Sony recently and all the backlash of that, what's a few $1 million in the grand scheme of the madness that is afoot for them? So I would like to see it because I think Fincher is a mastermind and Rooney Mara was amazing in this role. I still liked the Swedish version better with Noomi Rapace. It was just tonally just creepier. And I like what he did because it felt like a different film. And as a remake, that's what you should be doing. So yeah, I would be interested in seeing it. And then we hear Daniel Craig wouldn't even be coming back. And there's just been a lot of controversy and like a lot of delays with this one. So if I were Sony at the current state, I'd probably wash my hands of it because not everyone's like, oh, I'm dying for that, give it back to me, opposed to Spider-Man where everyone's like, what's gonna happen with the character? So I think from a business perspective, it'd probably be better to walk away at this point. Schnapp?
I agree. I mean, I love the Swedish versions, and I'd already seen all 3 of them by the time this movie came out. So I just felt like, why is David Fincher, why is everybody wasting their time because they already made this movie? It wasn't radically different. If you compare both films, the Swedish version and the American version, they're just too similar for my taste. Also, just a couple of years apart. Just the whole idea of like, we live in a global cinema now, so it's like making these remakes, like The Raid or something, like a year later, it just makes me very angry as a film goer. So
totally.
I'm happy and I thought it was a good film, but I don't need to see the American version of the girl who plays with the hornet's nest or the girl who played with fire because I've already seen them. I've seen the Swedish version and they're great. So
I buy that we're not going to see it again because if you read those emails, Fincher wants nothing to do with Sony at this point right now. You know, so as of right now, I mean, the back and forth and the negotiations were kind of bad and. So if it's him, he distances himself a little bit, and then Rooney Mara I don't want to see someone. It's probably going to be made in years from now, you know, from somebody else. I'm buying the fact that we won't see a Fincher Mara version. I'm not buying that we will never see it ever again. Probably the same time Manhood comes out.
Yeah, well, I'm selling it for that reason. I think you will eventually see another incarnation. I think you'll see a continuation. I don't think you're going to see a reboot of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I think they're going to pick up from wherever it left off. Because that movie, and I didn't see the Swedish versions, but that movie left off, and I was like, oh, no, okay, now I'm locked in. No, you got me. In the last 10 minutes, I was enjoying the movie, and now I'm like, now I want to see what happens next. I'm not going to read the books, so I want to see the movie version. And I feel bad for Sony because they just don't have good luck with franchises right now. Like, they just cannot get a franchise with any sort of stability right now. So I think eventually you will see something, but I agree with the panel that you're not going to see Fincher do it. I don't think he wants to waste his time. I don't think Rooney Mara wants to waste her time doing it. You see how hard it is once you get wrapped into a franchise that you're not that interested in, as it turns out, like with Dornan in 50 Shades of Grey. I think that if you see your exit plan, you can get out of something like this, they're probably going to do that.
And it excites me that Fincher, again, more original work because he's just so. Gone Girl was spectacular. I loved the book. I was like, what are they going to do with it? So that's exciting. So we'll see. All right, guys, I don't want to tease you. We're not going to have time for live Twitter questions. Sorry about that. We'll definitely try to save time for tomorrow because we're going to jump on into mailbag now. What's the first question?
Spencer Howe wrote, hey guys, being from the birthplace of Quentin Tarantino, it's no surprise that I love his movies, with my favorite one being Inglourious Bastards, in which Christoph Waltz gives an amazing performance. My question is, which actor or actress would you guys like to see in a Tarantino movie? My number one choice would be Matthew McConaughey.
I love this question. I want them all to be Tarantinoized. The first person that came to mind was Logan Lerman, because I think he has so much talent, but he still always plays the doe-eyed kind of innocent guy. Even in Fury, you know, he was the underdog, and he was great in it, and everything he's been in, Perks of Being a Wallflower, but I want to see him get into this world, this crazy world that Tarantino creates with that dialogue and that pace and everything about it. So I would really like to see that, because there's so many actors that would fit really well in, and I want to see them go out of their comfort zone, kind of like I've always wanted to see Jennifer Lawrence in a Tarantino film, because I think that would be great. Another one that actually starred with Logan Lerman in Perks, Emma Watson. I would love to see her in this. I think she is one of the best rising stars out there right now. Everything she's taking, she's handling it with so much care. As we know, with giant, franchises like Potter and Twilight, it's so hard to get out from that. But I think everyone in that clan, well, namely Radcliffe and Watson, have done a really good job. And I just think she's phenomenal. We saw a little bit of that edge, and this is the end. And I would love to see it in this context. So, Ellis?
I'm going to go young. I'm going to go old. I'm going to say Chloe Moretz. I think she's got so much talent. I'd like to see what Tarantino can do with her. I think she's at the right age where, well, probably like an Emma Watson too, where it's like, it's interesting to see how they're going to shed what their career has been to this point, of the image you have of them. Tarantino is really good at using actors in new ways, which is why I also would love to see Eddie Murphy be in a Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm so tired of seeing Eddie Murphy. It appears he had a lobotomy on Saturday Night Live and at the Oscars, and it's like that dude has so much talent in it, and maybe you need a filmmaker like Tarantino to be like, no, look, I have this vision, this character you can play, and we can put you back on the map where you belong. So that'd be awesome to see.
He needs to get his groove back. It makes me
Bro,
sad.
he's lost his mojo. Bro.
I'll match your comedy. I'll go Jim Carrey because with Jim Carrey, sorry, Schnapp.
I've got it written down.
Jim Carrey,
I'll have to fix it.
when you look what he did in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it was the one time that I remember watching him going, he's not doing his thing. That's the best he's ever been, hands down. It's the best he's ever been. And to see what Tarantino can do with Jim Carrey would be great. Now, as far as women go, I'd like to see Emily Blunt do it. I think
Oh,
to see
yeah,
her
great
twist.
one.
But and back and forth, and not just because she's a friend of the show, but Katie Sackhoff, because Katie Sackhoff was up for the role of the new one coming out, The Hateful Eight, with Jennifer Jason Leigh. She rented his house for like an hour with him, and he loved what she did with him. I want to see those two collaborate. They both got each other, yeah. So I want to see them work together.
I am excited for Lee because that's a very unconventional choice for that as well. Oh, he wrote it down. He's proving that he wrote it down. Schnapp, who else?
I stole your code and looked.
No, but I totally agree with you. For everything that he said, he absorbed it from my brain. He's got this strange talent.
What middle-aged comedic actor would you like to see?
I was just going to rock out, like, look, anybody from The Facts of Life,
Natalie!
Ricky Schroeder, get on that Tarantino tip, because he could, like, revive anybody who had a sparkle from the 80s or the 90s. And you always hear about all these actors and actresses like, man, if I could just get on that Tarantino film, then I could get Travolta'd. You know, everyone still uses that Travolta thing. Like, man, that dude was like doing Phenomenon, like kind of having weird smiles and walking through movies.
Michael.
Like just drifting through movies until Pulp Fiction. And then everyone's like, Travolta!
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Michael Keaton.
He would be amazing.
Well, no, he already did it. Jackie Brown.
Right.
Yeah, but like in this, after Birdman,
He doesn't need it, though. He doesn't need it.
doesn't
He was
need
already
it.
until he got Tarantino. He got Travolta.
right.
But
He was in
after
Jackie
the
Brown.
Oscar-
Basically, what everyone's saying is Lisa Turtle, there's a shot.
But Kirk Benedict got to get in that Travolta, get Travolta'd, you know? So let's go
Get
80s.
Travolta-fied.
Schroeder eyes, you know?
But not creepy face Travolta-fied, please. All right, what's next?
Stephen McKay wrote, hey guys, forgive me if you've discussed this before, but what's your favorite opening scene to a movie? Keep up the great work.
There are so many good ones. Schnapp, we can start with you so we don't steal yours.
Let
if
me
you
go
want.
to my special phone, but I will not allow Ellis to see Ellis. Ellis, not Ellis, Harloff.
Unbelievable.
You guys are so interchangeable. He's a show. All right, I had a bunch of them, so I'm not going to
Me
take because I
too.
know everybody has a
Do
lot.
we all have a bunch? Okay,
Yeah.
so what I did before is with movie dialogues, I went around the horn. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So you start.
Up, which had like the,
Oh my
the movie
God.
that
So
made
good.
me cry in like 3 minutes. I was angry at that movie
Yeah.
because I was tearing in 3 minutes.
Saving Private Ryan.
So good. Usual Suspects.
The Naked Gun with the siren going through all those different scenes, hysterical.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, that whole like running, just everything about
Yeah.
the beginning.
New Hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty sexy.
Last Crusade. Pretty much every Indiana. The first
Always had a
sequence
great
is so
sequence.
good.
Jaws.
Train spotting, just that whole running while they're going through little bits of the movie before you see the movie.
I'll give you a new one. Kingsman.
Super good. The Matrix was pretty epic.
Got one. Speed. The elevator scene?
Yeah, that's pretty
No?
good.
See you guys.
Okay, one more.
Once Upon a Time in the West, that opening scene where those cowboys are just all hanging out, it's like literally a 10-minute scene of almost nothing happening, and then Charles Bronson comes in with that harmonica, bam.
I'm blanking.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm blanking.
I love Heathers because they're playing croquet, and then all of a sudden you have Winona Ryder's head right there, and you have no
Right.
idea it's going to be a dark satire.
Yes.
So it says it, que sera, it's so good.
There's nothing that makes... I've never seen a movie make me laugh in the opening credits before you see anything like Monty Python and the Holy Grail when you're reading the subtitles in there. It's hysterical right into the coconut banging.
Wait,
I
I'll
got
do
my
one for
last one.
I'll do one for Harloff.
I had one.
I'll take
You
it.
gonna steal mine?
Yeah, no. I'll say Clockwork Orange.
Oh,
Go.
that was
Oh,
good,
yeah.
but Inglourious Bastards.
Oh yeah, so good. All right, guys,
And
I
Jim
love
Carrey.
that. I
And Jim
like
Carrey.
the around the horn because it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna cut it right here. Thanks so much for joining us on this lovely Tuesday. I'd like to thank my panel, starting with Mr. Mark Ellis on my left.
Hi, you can find me at 5150 Ellis on Twitter and Instagram, and upcoming comedy dates, markellislive.com.
Sound more excited about it. Christian Harloff.
Check me out at John Schnepp in my film. Sorry. At Christian Harloff on Twitter and on Instagram.
One of the schmoes over there, John Schnapp.
You can find me at all of the Schmoes Empire Imperium. That's on my special Han Solo phone. You can actually find me this coming weekend in Indianapolis at the Culture Shock Comic-Con. George Romero, Malcolm McDowell, all these biggies, and then my dumb ass is going to be there. So if you're in Indiana, come on down, say hello to me. At TDOSLWH, at John Schnapp on Twitter and Instagram.
You're the coolest of them all, mister. And the lovely Ashley Mova, our gatekeeper for today.
Twitter, Instagram at Ashley Mova. Happy Tuesday, guys.
The day's not complete without the shake. I'm Amy Rose at Amy Rosie on the various social channels. Don't forget, like us, follow us, share us. You know the deal. And we have a new episode of AMCI Indie Spotlight airing tomorrow. Don't forget to get your short film submissions in. So excited. And we'll be announcing the winner of the first round the first week of March on our next show. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.